where we can talk about things. And we've got a lot of information we can obtain from them. We've got to have a listening heart. We've got to have eye contact. We've got to turn our cell phone off. We can't be looking at our watch. I've only got 10 minutes to do this. You've got to give the worker your full, undivided attention. Have a listening heart, and don't argue with the worker. You may disagree on a point, but let's work through that. You need to ask more questions. You may find out they're doing it right, or the procedures change versus what you're aware of. You might even learn something. And I see this as an opportunity to appreciate the worker in the field who pays for half our salary in the office. We can't get the work done without the worker. They're the ones getting their hands dirty. They're the one out in the heat. They're the one out in the cold when it's raining or snowing. And they're really tough to find, particularly reliable and on time and productive. Be respectful at all times. Ask permission to take notes. Just more of an idea to make it respectful, that you trust what he says. The worker needs time to steep over, just like steeping, to work. Don't expect them to ask a quick answer. Give them time to respond, even a little pause. Let them ask the questions of the observer, because it's their interview too. Workers want to be heard. Ask any field worker, is there paperwork I need to sign or review before I enter the work area? Can you describe the hazards I need to watch out for as we walk around the work area? Is this a good time, or should we come back at a better time? Now here's one of my secrets. The one I just talked about. Ask the field worker, do I have permission to take notes at your work area? Oh, by the way, I'm going to let you read my notes before I leave the area. This is going to take something. They're going to de-escalate the whole thing. Now, you may disagree on their opinion, but at least you know what he observed. And there's a chance, there's an opportunity for feedback both ways. Well, maybe he's wrong, maybe he's right, but there's some issues going on. This is, I think, is a critical thing in intervention that we never do. We never show up. We just walk off and wonder, my God, am I going to get fired tomorrow for what I said? Goes home, tells his wife, somebody came out, he said I was doing everything wrong. Honey, I don't know if I want to have a job tomorrow. I think you'd sleep a little better knowing what he's talking about. They deserve that. They absolutely, positively deserve that. Now, a good example, workers want to be heard. There's an example in Jack Welch's book on winning. When he first got on as CEO, he went around to each plant and had sessions with groups of people to get their opinion. One guy held his hand up. He was an appliance assembly worker, been around 30 years. He said, Jack said, for 30 years, you own my back, you own my arms, my legs, but you never, and you own my mind, but you never asked me what I thought. You never asked me to come in with all these ideas to change this and change that. And I knew better than that, but nobody wanted to hear me. They desperately want to be heard. And the secret to this is, if management's got a big problem, down here at the bottom, it's a little problem. But if you can solve his little problem, if you listen to him and said, I heard what he said, you got a chance to make some real inroads, and you can work together as a team, and the worker and the observer are going to be on the same page. So if he comes up with an issue of concern, you're going to ask him, you talk to your supervisor or foreman. Were the issues resolved? Do you mind if I write it down and take it to the next level? And then you do it. And what I call this is speed of trust. Not only do you take it up the line, but you acknowledge that I heard from him. You don't throw it in the trash can, you don't throw it in the toilet. You let them know, and you may come up and say, I don't know. but we're gonna work on them. I've assigned this to so-and-so, and they're gonna call you back. What's your contact number? And we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna hear what you have to say. Might be a great idea. This is how we build trust. This is how you build a culture. And you can't do it without it. There's no way. Now, if you decide after a bit you don't answer the guy back, got to start all over. And you may have that chance, you may not. But the worker's got all the information. He knows better than anybody how to do it. And he's probably got some great ideas on how to make it more efficient. You said at that plant they initially had, at one time they had 1,500 workers. How many do they have now?
365.
365. So they got 365 dedicated people. And they found out there was redundancy and they worked on that. Dave said the only reason they're in business is because all their heavy equipment, those big cat, those huge dump trucks are already paid for. So you don't think they take care of their equipment? Because if something breaks down and they got $1 million repair, that affects everybody's bottom line because everybody's on the pay scale. So they've got ownership in what they're doing, and they care, and that's what we all want. We can't have this us and them. Ed describes it as mind over matter. We don't mind and you don't matter. It's us versus them. And that's got to go away. The command and control doesn't work. So that's my secret. Ask those questions. Now, there's several ways you can do this. One of my handouts is going to be a safety moment. The lady this morning talked about a safety moment, which we all use. I'm suggesting you use an intervention moment. And what I'm going to give you in my handouts, you'll see when you download it, it has the rules of the game, and basically what this says is, when you start a meeting, they're going to randomly ask somebody around the table, and this is not for secretaries. What did you make a difference for, and what intervention have you had this week? So you've got to have one in your hip pocket, so you've got to be looking around. It can be off the job, it can be on the job, it can be successful, it can be unsuccessful. But you got one in your pocket, and you have every right to ask the leader of the meeting what's his. Now you've got engagement, now you've got people watching, now you've got people looking. And if you've got concerns you see in the field, you take it up the line. Now what if the worker has it? Nobody's asking them. At Hanford, they had a logbook in every work location. And anybody could come out and fill that logbook out and said, on this date and this time, I have a copy of that sheet, we'll put in the stuff that's available. It says, this is my concern, this is my solution, this is the date, and this is the area of concern. If this takes it to a supervisor, the book. If that's not solved, they take it to the next level. If it's not solved there, maybe it's a budget issue, goes to the next one, goes all the way to the management committee. And they post the status of this on the bulletin. Everybody knows what's going on. And the speed of trust is not only giving them an answer that you acknowledge it, it's also speed of trust that you give them an answer. If you don't know, say, don't know, I'll find out, but you let them know as soon as you find out. And if you can communicate to those people and give them the big picture, they're going to be a lot better employees. If you've got the big picture, that's what those people have there at Montana Mine. They got a big picture. They say there's a recession coming or whatever it might be, we're going to have some problems, but we're going to work through it. At least everybody knows up front and they told them. Or this is uncertainty and there's going to be some things coming and we're not sure exactly what, we're concerned, but we're going to work through it. And we need your help to make sure, let's minimize unscheduled delays and activities, and let's take extra special care of the equipment because of the failure we had over here. Then everybody's on the same boat and headed down the same river in the same direction. So that's what trust, that's how you develop trust with intervention. Same page, same way, respectful at all times to build trust. Now I have a handout here, and I apparently don't know how to read spell check and interventionist. The top of the first thing is, the T is missing, so I apologize for that. But these are, and what I say is, without trust, without truth, there's no trust. Without trust, there's no communication. And without trust, there can be no change. And Mr. Gettimore says it a little differently than I do. And I want to quote right out of his book. That's what he told me I could quote verbally, but I couldn't write it down. Without trust, there's low morale. Without trust, there's low productivity. Without trust, there's poor service. Without trust, there is strict policy. Without trust, there is high turnover. Without trust, rumors are rampant. Without trust, there's no open communication. And without trust, there is doubt and disappointment. If there's anything management doesn't want or need, or all those things, they fight every day. And I think trust is the glue that binds all this stuff together. I don't want to overplay it. That's probably another way to do it, but I say culture is so important. And the best example I've got of culture is water in an aquarium. It affects everything. But the morale and control, everything involved communication goes back to trust. They know if you stand up and talk that you don't care in the first 5 words you say. And they stop listening. They don't care what you got to say. They've heard all of it before, and they'll stop. They're tired of this flavor of the week or flavor of the month. So all I'm saying is, God Almighty, to get trust, you have to work at it. It has to be respectful, and it's one step at a time, one brick at a time, one level at a time. Doesn't happen overnight, and they've worked hard at that for 30 years. If you want it, you want to keep it, you've got to work at it. You've got to be purposeful, and you've got to be thoughtful, and you've got to be conscious of those around you. You talked about one guy that was at the end of his workers' comp that had been exhausted. And what did the insurance company want him to do?
That was the most DMR I've ever seen.
Unheard of.
On a roofing company.
They had a deal that said, they told them the first day at work, if you get hurt, we're going to take care of you. They didn't have to worry about modified duty. Didn't have to worry about going. They took care of them. And they knew that. They had this, and they hired a lot of people that were their brothers and sisters and family. They didn't go out and put a higher